All right. It's pretty obvious by now that not only was I trying to get help, but that I spent every resource that I had trying to stop the abuse that I still have to endure every day. Every day, I have to be afraid that my predators will do the things that they have done repeatedly because no one has made any attempt to stop them. No one has made any attempt at arresting those who have assaulted me or threatened my life. Now, there was one time when I threatened my abusers back. And guess what? The people that I did not threaten wanted to pretend that I threatened their life. Alicia Bollinger got to have court without me, and the police had to break a lot of laws to make sure that I couldn't go to those court dates where slander was allowed and the truth was not. It's pretty obvious by now that she is on drugs. She has been on drugs. I told you she was on drugs because she was on drugs. She's had to go to court repeatedly since Natalie's death because she can't stay off the drugs. And that's not because of Natalie's death. She couldn't get off the drugs before Natalie's death. I get that they didn't want everybody to know that they were on drugs. I get that. But they should have thought about that before telling lies that were getting me physically assaulted and having me and my family threatened. And then they magically get away with it because we don't have a system of law enforcement. We don't have a judicial system. They were able to prevent me from turning in my predators and prevent me from even going to court by repeatedly pretending that I'm schizophrenic. And of course, I'm not. That's what these conversations prove. The narrative that I've been abused over for the last 5 years is a lie. The conversations with Terry Jepson prove that. The conversations with Peaches prove that. The conversations with Jamie Curtis prove that. The conversations with Kayla Trujillo and the conversations with Katie Cahill. All of these conversations show that I was telling the truth from the start. Were these people telling the truth or were they gaslighting me? The cops tell me they can't do anything about opinions. Well, with all due respect, if someone assaulted me, that's not an opinion. You can go arrest them. Instead of breaking the law to allow a sex offender who threatened my life on more than one occasion, wanted to claim it was a joke, and then assaulted me. This is why it is a conflict of interest. I shouldn't have to go to the cops that I am trying to turn in. They're not going to help me. They know I'm trying to turn them in. It is obvious to anyone who actually takes a look that yes, they are doing everything that they can to destroy my name so they can get away with whatever they want. And then you tell me I wanted it, needed it, chose it, deserved it, and asked for it. How horrible is that? There are hundreds and hundreds of conversations just on this YouTube with witnesses that show that I'm telling the truth. But I need your help to show it. I've tried. I've needed help in person. Somebody who is not strung out on drugs, somebody who is not an alcoholic, because they're not going to help. And you can't tell them, hey, your drug abuse and the way that you are treating your girlfriend and the way that she is treating you because you are completely messed up on methamphetamines, that's scaring me. That is triggering my PTSD. People keep saying, why don't you move? I do keep moving. Do you know how stressful it is to move? Especially this much. Police did everything that they could to prevent me from turning in them and the Bollinger family. They have done this for 5 years. They have done everything that they can to prevent me from showing up in court, from speaking up in court, to rob me of my money. I am disabled. I need that money to live on. I have spent literally thousands of dollars on electronic equipment so I can show the evidence, not just online, but in real life. So they do everything that they can to rob me of my resources and pretend that it's okay. And people keep saying, hey, Sean, do you have a this? Do you have a that? Or what happened to all the money people gave you on them GoFundMe's? Well, I didn't get a single penny out of that. Candace Bondurant was intimidated by the police in Colorado. She made one of those, okay? Now, when she did horrible things to me because she was intimidated by someone else, she wanted to treat me like a bad guy. There was a web group that was started by Caramia that was supposed to be to help me. What did Candace do? She didn't show all of the evidence. She showed just the parts that she could try to use to get Caramia to hate me and to slander me all over that. She went around to all of those people. She destroyed that group. And people from that group were getting a hold of me saying, hey, Caramia is, and by the way, her real name is Cara Rogers. Cara Rogers. She's one of these catfish folks. She did more harm than good. And Caramia had made the other GoFundMe. I mean, obviously, if there's any money, it's going to go to those two people. It's going to go to Candace Bondurant. Yes, there was money that was sent to that account. You have to ask Candace Bondurant what she did with that money. You have to ask Carl Rogers what she did with that money. It is illegal to do these things to me, but not if nobody cares. Sure, it says it's illegal on paper. It's illegal for the sheriff to commit the crimes that he's committed. But unless these people actually care enough to speak up, it doesn't make any difference. It's pretty obvious from these conversations that these people were well aware of the crimes that were being committed against me. They admitted to seeing them. In some of these cases, these people admitted that they were being victimized as well, that they were too afraid to come forward because they saw so many other people having their lives threatened for standing up and saying the truth. And my predators all get away with it by using the term mentally ill to loosely associate it with what? Schizophrenia. When that wasn't good enough, these officers were telling hospital staff that I was schizophrenic, and those hospital staff didn't hear a word I said after that. They didn't care. Sheriff says he's schizophrenic. He says that the sheriff committed crimes against him. So obviously he's delusional, and we need to inject him with drugs that are dangerous. Drugs that literally kill people, like Tibor Hatay, Elijah McClain, and many others. When you try to turn in bad cops, they utilize the medical community to get away with their crimes. I can't go to any of these law enforcement agencies about any of the crimes committed against me because of jurisdiction. Meanwhile, Scott DeCosta can utilize multiple law enforcement agencies across multiple jurisdictions in order to guarantee that it is a big giant mess. And then I get told, well, I can't do anything about that. It's out of jurisdiction. It's not my jurisdiction. Not my jurisdiction. Really? You committed felonies to help another officer to get away with the felonies that he committed. It's not like this isn't obvious. But I have no rights as a human being because of the term mentally ill. The term mentally ill has not only denied me all of the rights that you take for granted, it has denied me the rights of a disabled person. How is that okay? I'm not just speaking out. I have attempted to make steps to get these things done. But most of the people at the Dual County Courthouse are friends with the sheriff. I have to go to these friends of his to turn him in. Their names are all over my paperwork. I have multiple recordings where I went into the courthouse. There are two women there with the last name of Hanson, and I spoke to both of them about the abuse. One of them is the court clerk. I spoke with her twice. The second time, she told me something completely than she told me the first time. It's fine as long as it's not happening to you. Laura Nelson turning a blind eye to this happening to me means that people can do this to her son. So if she really cares about him, she should do the right thing and she should tell the truth. All these people who told me that they were afraid right from the very start should have said that in court. But they didn't. Instead, they wanted to be angry at me for telling the truth and for recording the truth. Not just Laura Nelson, not just Brenda Dickinson, not just Terry. The courts have gone out of their way to obstruct justice. And there's nobody that I can go to because it's pretty obvious by now that my autism advocate is not actually going to advocate for me. Now, what she needs to do is tell you guys that. She needs to tell you guys the reasons that she can't. I got mad at Meg. I'm still mad at Meg. There's a guy on my thing here. His name is Brent Jepson. He works for the Dual County Sheriff's Department now. And I have conversations with him up here, at least one. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to put it in the comment section. See, your channel. D-R-E-N-T. Brent. Copy link address. Now, like I said, there's two Jepson families. This is the other Jepson family. This guy is not related to Terry. Click. Paste. This is during an interlude in his law enforcement career. He was not currently a cop at this point in time. Now, Brent gave me his number so that if there were some problems, I could get a hold of him. And I actually have two numbers for him, so I wasn't sure which one to get a hold of. And I wrote, view all, because apparently I typed too much. Dude, it's Sean. I'm scared shitless of Dual County Sheriff's Department. You were the only cop I know who is capable of speaking up for me as a person, and the only one in Dual County who hasn't committed crimes against me. I posted evidence that I'm not schizophrenic. All their BS was based on that lie. Let's see. I typed to her, I'm just going to read all of this. She types, I just read my email. It already does talk about the public defender and the fact that you were organizing evidence to give to the state patrol. The only person it does not mention is William Barr, because I didn't know of him until you were in jail. I only learned William Barr name from the charges. I will add again why I can't help you more than I already have and why. That is not a problem. Thank goodness. See, that's helpful. That's useful. Here's this next one. She types to me, in terms of Amanda, she is both right and wrong based on your text. We do have two grants that we give to autistic people. One is called an enrichment grant. It is basically for anything that helps the person. It is $100 per year per person through an application. We were not able to give any of those in 2021 because our fundraisers didn't bring in money because of the pandemic. Fundraisers. This isn't a government grant that they're magically given and is to help us out. It's something that they have to try hard to hope that you guys care. You don't care about autistic people. We might as well be toilet water to you guys. You certainly don't want to touch it with your hands. Anyway, she typed, we are not able to give out any of those in 2021 because our fundraisers didn't bring in money because of the pandemic. Now, many of the rights that I am entitled to as an American were denied because of the pandemic. Just so you know that. That was their excuse for denying me my constitutional rights, is the pandemic. What was their excuse before the pandemic? She types, we had a donation for 2022, so we are going to be able to offer those grants in 2022. The second grant we have is a conference grant where autistic individual or their families can go to an autism conference of their choice and the registration fee is covered. That doesn't sound at all like what it is that the cops told me. That doesn't sound at all like what it is that Amanda said. Um, those grants are both based on how much fundraising and donations we get each year. There are more than 70 Autism Society affiliates in the US. Some states have more than one based on size. Some have funding sources from their state, some do not. Some have paid staff, some do not. Each one has some similarities dictated by national, for example, logos, nonprofit status. Most have been founded by parents. In Nebraska, we were founded in the 70s by a group of parents. In Nebraska, we have never had government funding and never will. We are still led by volunteers like myself. We have not been able to raise enough money to hire staff to run the organization as some larger states with funding have been able to do. We are not and have never been paid advocates. This is stuff that you guys need to know. She types, we do not have any advocacy training or credentials. So she's not actually an advocate. She says, let's see. I'm sorry, it's pretty long, so I'm trying to find the spot I was at. We are not and have never been paid advocates. We do not have any advocacy training or credentials and are not recognized by other agencies as an advocacy service. That right there would have been nice to know before December 31st of last year. That would have been nice to know the day that we got started if she could have said that specific part right there. Because that's what all these other people are basing their decisions on, is their assumptions of what she's supposed to do. But like I said, she's a volunteer. Now, this is stuff that she should come forward about instead of me having to read it on Facebook or YouTube. But we will continue. We're just well meaning parents who want to help people. They're not allowed to help. Everything that she has done to try to help has been cut off by the very people I'm trying to turn in. She has made so many calls with me. and calls for me. And then there's the calls that I've made. And then there's the slander that says I'm not trying to get help. And that slander is not from her. Now let's continue. Most of our time is spent trying to help create community activities and give information to the autism community. I would like to know what she said about supposed to show up in court. She is right about the grants. We have two. One is called an enrichment grant, and it's $100 per year. And we have enough money set aside to award 8 to 10 of those a year that anyone with autism can apply for to use for something they need or want that might help them. When I met you, I used this grant for you to pay the $140 balance you had with Chapel Housing Authority so that you could put in your application for housing. The second grant we have is a conference grant that we will pay the cost of the registration for any autism conference that they want to go and learn more about autism. The down payment and partial first month's rent was part of a COVID grant from an Obama agency that I found and requested on your behalf for $415. Those grants are now gone. Well, there's the dog barking. Now, we were supposed to set it up for a three-way call between Hermie and Amanda so that she could explain this to Amanda, which is a lot easier than me being a go-between for 6 months between her and Amanda. Now, obviously, my safety doesn't mean anything. Obviously, my predators may do whatever they choose and get away with it by calling me mentally ill. There are literally hundreds of conversations on my YouTube that show that I'm telling the truth, that I did go to people for help, that I was blown off, that I was given the "you're a male" treatment, or "you're white, so you're privileged, so we're going to ignore the crimes against you." Or they just simply didn't care. It's not that I wasn't trying to get help, it's that people were not coming forward. They were not telling the truth. They were fine with me being abused. And this is felonious. I shouldn't have to remain in a town where I am afraid of law enforcement for obvious reasons. And this law enforcement gets to continually abuse their power to keep me from showing evidence or speaking up. There's the rights that we are all supposed to have, and then there's the fact that in reality, they can break the law to prevent you from having those rights. They have, and they will continue to do so. I've got 5 years of documented evidence of me trying to get help. 5 years of documented evidence of me going to Dual County Sheriff's Department to try to get help. And not just Dual County Sheriff's Department. They helped registered sex offender Robert Warnick get away with committing multiple felonies, refused to investigate any of the crimes that he committed against me. And the one time that Sean Holloway pretended that he was going to, and mind you, I'd been to Sean Holloway at least 3 times by this point. Just him. That's just Sean Holloway. And at least one of those conversations where I'm trying to turn these situations in is on this YouTube. Now, when people commit crimes against me, I get all these excuses why it's okay. Why it's apparently not even against the law. Well, it's apparently against the law if I do it back. It's okay for people to threaten my life, but I can't threaten their lives back. Now, I'm obviously not interested in going running around threatening people's lives. The day that I did that to get a court date. I keep getting told that it's not illegal for them to do these things, that these officers can't do anything about it, or that it's not against the law. Really? It's against the law when I do it, isn't it? It's not that these crimes weren't committed, it's that nobody cared. Nobody cared enough to actually do anything that actually works to stop it. The number one reason for people being afraid to come forward is their fear of the police and the public, especially after seeing with their own two eyes how I have been treated. Meanwhile, this is happening because of slander. I am being abused because of slander. Slander that I have been illegally prevented from turning in. It's not that I haven't tried. You can go through here. There are hundreds of phone calls. I want you to imagine that with these phone calls, I want you to imagine what it's like for me being in person. When I go in person, most of the time I have to remain calm and collective, like that conversation between me, Sean Holloway, the sheriff of this town, with Laura Nelson present. Laura Nelson was there for my safety. And the police treated me differently because she was there. Just like Rod Wright was there for my safety. I explained to him that I needed him there for my safety so that Dual County Sheriff's Department could not do the things that they have repeatedly done. Well, since somebody was there, they pretended that they were going to help me, but then the first opportunity that they got, they trumped up charges and helped hide the crimes committed by Robert Warnick. Hide them. They committed these crimes so that they could hold court without me, so that my predators could make false charges and I could not defend myself against it. And did they bother to tell the courts that I was in prison on false charges? No, Leslie Snell was not going to tell that to the judge. Then I write a letter to the judge, and I get treated the same way that my autism advocate got treated. Well, I can't look at it. Really? You are the judge who denied me my legal rights because of outright lies, and I'm not even allowed to show up in court. I'm not allowed to show evidence. I am not allowed to even appeal it. And that's not the first time that law enforcement has done that. They did the same thing when I was in Arapahoe County Jail and Boulder County Jail. Repeatedly, the predators that I was trying to turn in, who were gaslighting me, and they magically win because I'm prevented from going to court. Then my public pretender can't even get a hold of any of these other places, can't even try to let them know, hey, he's incarcerated. He can't show up to court. Now, she claimed that she had done that. Her and her boss sat with me before court and coached me on what to say. If you say this and this and this and this, then you'll get to go free. It was my birthday. October 18th of 2018. I did as they wanted. The judge had already denied me the right to fire her for not doing her job, for breaking the law to allow my predators to do whatever they wanted to me. The judge had already let me know that I couldn't get a new public pretender. So I listened to my public pretender. She pretended like I would be allowed to go free if I pled guilty. And if I outright lied and said that I had not been coerced into it. The judge knew that my public pretenders were not doing their job. If someone showed up to court, they postponed it and postponed it and postponed it. I was assaulted at Clearview. The things that were done to me at Clearview killed people at Clearview. They finally dropped the charges while I was in prison. Finally. A lot of people are pissed off because I proved with their own words that I did go to them for help. I was trying to go get help. And what I got was being blown off. There's what the cops said, and then there's the fact that these people are hundreds of miles away. The reality is these people are unable to help me because they are hundreds of miles away. In reality, these people are unable to help me because the police denied them the right to make a police report. Meanwhile, this stuff is all true. Without someone here in person to protect my rights, it doesn't matter. They will do whatever they want and they will get away with it. And then people keep saying, why don't you move? You know what? We've been going through the paperwork since I started going through my therapist and my caseworker in Sydney. We've been trying to find me housing for 3 months. We're not getting anywhere. Meanwhile, my rights with housing have been denied because they are crooked. It is obvious that Cindy has been doing the things that I said that she's been doing. It's obvious that the Omaha World Herald did make an article about it, and it is obvious that her boss, Nancy, helped her to get away with it. This is not okay. You don't want me to speak with emotion. You don't want me to be angry. These people are angry at me because I showed the truth. Shouldn't it be allowed in court? Shouldn't the truth be allowed in court? This is evidence that all of these people lied outright. That they slandered my name in order to get away with their abuse. And that slander was allowed in court, but real evidence was not because of the term mentally ill. Be safe. Now, I heard the dog bark, but I didn't hear anybody knock on the door, so I don't know if the cops were here or not. It might have just been somebody driving by slowly.